Now, wishing you all a very happy new year 2026. My dear students, I welcome you once again to a short video that is connected to your personality interview PI. There are different types of interviews that you have to face, right? And that's a very broad category that has been, in practice. One is the normal or the traditional interview, and the other one which we are going to discuss today is behavioral event interview. Abbreviation is or acronym is BEI. So basically we are going to discuss today behavioral event interview, what they are, how they are conducted, why are they conducted, and how should you prepare or respond to, right? Now, first of all, let us know what this BEI or behavioral event interview is all about. Behavioral interview or behavioral event interview is a structured interview method that predicts the future job performance by asking the candidate to describe specific past experience, right? Now, these interview questions are so designed that they focus on the real action, not hypothetical situations, right? So, BEI operates on the principle that past behavior is the best predictor of your future behavior. So, obviously, your recruiters will be trying to assess what was your past behavior. Accordingly, they will predict that you will also be behaving in the same way if at all you are taken in. Now, BEI actually is a better alternative to the traditional interview because it provides an accurate picture of candidates' capabilities, because it examines how they have handled the real challenges and situations in the past, maybe in the past organization. So, it is considered as a more powerful and more effective tool to assess talents. Now, it is a truism, now it is all well known that we all design our CV resume, precisely to impress our potential recruiters. So, BEI need arises because of these specific reasons. Because candidates share a polished resume prepared by experts taking assistance of others. When they get into the organization, they try to impress the interviewers in all possible way, right? Form handshake, right? And they pretend or try to project themselves as I am a team player and I am the most preferred candidates that you can look for, right? So, in order to enhance the recruiting or hiring accuracy, recruiters have been making use of late this BEI or behavioral event interview. And on behavioral event interview, some go on to tell or rather name it as a lie detector test for the job applicants. Now, what is the core philosophy behind this BEI? There is an iceberg model that has been suggested by experts. Let's see what they mean. In iceberg, you find there are two parts. One is what is visible to the naked eyes, which is surface over the water, and the major part is beneath the water. So, the tip or the above the water part, the visible factors that you put in your CV, resume, educational, skills, years of experience that you have acquired, knowledge, all these are already reflected in your resume, CV or profile that you candidate have already submitted along with a forwarding letter, job application letter. But the base of the pyramid, below the water, what is not visible in your CV, these are the traits that is motivational, or motivation rather, level of motivation you have, personality that you possess, your attitude, your emotional stability, the values you carry, these are all drive your behavior and long-term success in the organization, right? So, BEI will always aim to dive underwater, prove the uncovered these traits which we have just now listed out. Now, What is the nature of a BEI? Let's see some of the typical most important nature of the behavioral event interview. First is they focus on the past action, right? Unlike the traditional interview, they will never ask you what would you do in XYZ situation. Rather, they will be asking you question, what did you do, right? Because in the question what would you do, you are most likely to answer in a theoretical way, right? And try to project yourself as the best candidate, right? So they focus on the past action. Next is structured probing. This is another nature of the BEI. Interviewers act as investigative reporter, right? Using follow-up questions when required, right? And they will be trying to find out what a person or what the candidate rather thought, felt and said during an event in the past. Third nature of that we'd like to know, you need to know is that BEIs are basically competency based. What does it mean? Questions are pre-mapped to specific job competencies. Specific job competencies are already reflected in your JD or job descriptions. So based on the job descriptions, these competency based questions are pre-mapped and are already framed. Okay. For instance, job might demand some leadership skill or conflict resolution skill, adaptability or flexibility skills. So the question will accordingly be framed that how did you behave in respect of all these traits in the past. So basically the nature of behavioral interview is first, it focuses on the past action, has some structured probing, right? Then there are some competency based questions already which are pre-mapped. Now, how do you organize or how you are likely to face this BEI and what should be your response like? Now we'll come to the more important part for you students or the job seekers. So BEI questions are structured around what is called a STAR model. STAR is an acronym, STAR. What they stand for? S stands for the situation or the context. Task stands for your responsibility, the job. Then action, A stands for action, which is what exactly you did, and then the R stands for results. So these are the four letters, but there is sometimes a fifth one, that is what is called a reflection, that is takeaways, right? We'll discuss all these four, and sometimes the STAR questions or the BEI also includes a fifth R, that is second R after reflection. After results, then reflection. Let's go into one by one. Okay. Now these 5 main questions in the STAR methods, right? Let us see what they mean. Situation. What was the situation like, right? For example, the question when the recruiter are looking for a commercially minded sales and marketing persons or rather a customer relationship manager, right, who is particularly well versed in handling customer or client complaint. So the candidate may be asked whether they can describe the situation that demonstrate their skill of handling complaints. So this is about situation. Next is your task. So in task, basically the question will revolve around who was involved in the situation and what was your task in the situation. You as the candidate, you are expected to answer this. Here the interviewers are trying to discover the exact task of the candidate in the situation already described, right? So interviewer wants to find out that, or rather what perspective the candidates took and how they felt at that time. Their thoughts, their emotions, their fear, their self-confidence, how happy they were, etc., etc. So after situation and task, the third element is action. What did you ultimately do and say in the situation? So interviewers wants to find out what the candidates' competencies are, right? So taking the same example, handling a complaint, right? How he attended to a complaint of the customer, right? The candidate may say, I carefully listened to the dissatisfied customer patiently, right? So to this, the interviewers may further ask. Let me tell you here, each of these, STAR acronym, they stand for some, traits or some rather elements, and each of them have a different weight in the total BEI, mind you. I'll come to that later. So the interviewer may ask a further follow-up questions. Why he decided to take that action? Now this is optional, right? But they may ask you. So after action, the fourth one is the result. What was the result of your action? So here the interviewers may use result questions to find out whether the desired effect or results had been achieved. Sorry. So the result assessed from the multiple perspective, not from one perspective, right? So there are different stakeholders, mind you. So you have to also satisfy your organization, you have to satisfy your clients or customers, and you have to also meet the objective of your organization or your boss rather, immediate boss. So in terms of that, what was the results? So those aspects are you have to answer. It will be more clear subsequently when we take up some examples, dear students. Next is, as I said, there could be a fifth element, that is another R at the end, that is reflection. What this stands for? Do the candidate stand by what he or she did in the past? Right? So second R will reflect on reflection, right? This is an optional, mind you, may be added to the question, right, or not. What are your thoughts on your own course of action, right? Suppose specifically they may ask you, do you think your action was justified then, right? Or the question could be like this: faced with a similar situation now, would you go for the same set of action, or you would have taken a different PA? So now, having discussed what a STAR method of conducting a BEI which you are likely to face, let us go for an example, right? The question is, tell me about a time when you demonstrated your leadership. Very often, managers, particularly those management students, also your BTech or professional courses that you people are pursuing, you will be asked about the leadership qualities. This is one of the very important soft skill, mind you. So what you have to do, you have to demonstrate your skill through an engaging example as suggested in the STAR approach. Suppose you are a fresh management graduate without much experience. So how do you demonstrate? How do you, answer? So first is situation. Let us see the situation. So how the candidate ideally could answer. When I was pursuing my MBA, there were several students in my batch who were struggling with communicative English, right? Both written as well as oral. They were apprehensive of their success as they hailed from a regional language background, right? Now the task comes. With an upcoming semester examination and later on to face the campus drives, I was asked, or rather requested by my close friends to help them and speak to the authorities, right? Then the action part begins, because you have to show your leadership, right? So what you did, you can answer this way. I discussed with the principal madam and requested to convene a meeting which were attended by proctors, communicative English teachers and a few of our students, right? A comprehensive plan was designed. It was decided to have special mentoring session twice a week beyond the college hours. One of the sessions was to be taken by the expert trainer, who was also a soft skill expert, right? There are also provision for online sessions which were organized on Sundays, right? So these were my action part. And then what was the outcome or results, right? Our batch average CGPA was 9.5 out of 10. The university gold medalist and the bronze medalist were from my college. In the campus placement drive, 86% of my batchmates cracked with average CTC of 9.65 lakhs per annum LPA. This was the outcome. So the candidate states here the situation, the task, the action he took, and then the results, right? So the time you took to answer these BEI questions about leadership, you have to divide them into this following way, roughly. Situation, it will take 20%, task 10%, action 60%, because that's the most important part of the BEI interview, which they will be assessing you, right, your action, and also the results another 10%, right? Now let us see a few BEI questions that you are likely to get, one or two, right, not more, there are many more. So here is a question, here is an example, rather a model questions, overcoming mistakes, right? The interviewers may be interested to ask you about any mistakes you committed in earlier and how did you, what action you took, everything. Now the question could be like this: share a time you made a mistake at your work and how you corrected it. Now see the model answer, which you should, right? These are all model answers. You can, you feel free to change this, right, wordings and all. Now model answer goes like this: I once misquoted a client a server price early in my career. I let my manager know, which he appreciated. That means I communicated to my manager. I suggested we notify the customer with the correct higher estimate, but simultaneously we should offer to waive the installation fees. The customer understood the mistakes, right, and continued to select us for the job. Now I learned the lesson. Thereafter, I kept an updated price list at my desk to prevent any other mistakes in future. See the, the star approach here applied. That is, next let's go to the one more example. Sometimes you are to make some unpopular decision, right, forced by circumstances. So the interviewers might probe this particular, competency of yours. So what the question will be? Tell me or tell us a time you made an unpopular decision at work. So what should be your right way to answer? Here it goes one way. In my last role, employees could switch shift without, manager's knowledge, right? Now I implemented a new process or method rather to have a supervisor's approval of the schedule change, which initially were registered by the employees. I wrote an email communication explaining the process and the reasons behind it, reassuring my colleagues that shift changes would continue to be approved with due process. The new method worked well and employees continued to enjoy flexibility, and I was appreciated for my efforts. Okay, so this could be another example that you can cite, right? Now these are some of the ways you can handle, get better prepared for your BEI interview, which could also be part of your interview, and you may not be knowing, particularly, so you must try to assess whether this is a traditional interview or they are probing, specific competencies in me, right, and accordingly you must answer. So before I conclude, here are some behavioral tips rather that you should keep in mind and get ready for. First is focus your response on the actual behavior and emotions. Don't get tempted to say something which is not real, right? You should not try to bend the truth. Why? Because they may not match what you have already mentioned in your job application or your resume, CV, covering letter. Secondly, describe your role in the past situation. Focus on your response on how you contributed to the outcome of possibly the team effort. Maybe you were a part of the team, but then you should also highlight what was your contribution in the team success or outcome. Third is provide specific examples of your action avoid giving answers that are too generalized. For example, do not say, I was an excellent team member. That gives no sense. Next is, reveal your skill related to the job, right? So, for instance, leadership and collaboration. These were, the skills I possessed, and I must give an example of, particularly when I am appearing for a role of that of a supervisor or a manager, because I am to manage people. So, I have these two skills, leadership and collaboration, right? So, this way you can get ready for a behavioral event interview, because more often nowadays, within the traditional interview also, they mix up certain questions which are specifically intended to assess your competency, right, or rather behavioral competency. This is all about, in brief, about the BEI or behavioral event interview, right? Now, before I close this particular lesson, I would again repeat the same old, right? Now, dear students, if you find this is interesting, adding value to you, do please like, share, and give your feedbacks also, so that I can implement on your feedbacks. I can better improve certain things as for your needs, right? Thank you. All the best. Once again, Happy New Year 2026. Thank you.